Welcome to the Soulful CXO, where we discuss leadership principles, core values, health, wellness, and resiliency. I'm Dr. Rebecca Wynn, the founder and the host of the show. Do you have a topic or guest you would like to be featured on the show? Would you like to be a sponsor? Please reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me at rebecca@soulfulcxo.com. Please go to our partner, Cybersecurity Tribe, for weekly show recaps and other resources. Listen and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Soulful CXO. I'm your host, Dr. Rebecca Wynn. To all my United States of America listeners, happy 4th of July, which is our Independence Day. Today we'll be discussing the thrilling story of a secret woman spy. According to popular lore, a woman spy known only as Agent 355 helped George Washington win the American Revolution, serving as key Manhattan Long Island Intelligence Network member, later dubbed the Covert Spy Ring. There's just one problem with this story. There's no proof of 355's adventures in espionage. It doesn't exist. The only reference to 355 appears in an August 15th, 1779 letter, where it reads, quote, I intend to visit 727. 727 is Covert code for New York. Before long, and think about the assistance of a 355. 355 is Covert code for lady. Of my acquaintance shall be able to outwit them all, end quote. So I'll read that again. I intend to visit 727 before long and think of the assistance of 355. Of my acquaintance shall be able to outwit them all. This sole mention of her in the historical record states that she was a lady, not necessarily a spy, who could help the patriots, quote unquote, outwit them all. Unfortunately, this lack of evidence hasn't stopped authors, television, movie producers from inventing tales of her exploits, including the 2022 Jessica Chastain movie 355. Let's dive in further. During the Battle of Long Island in August 1776, Washington, then Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, was repeatedly surprised by the British. He only escaped the destruction of his army thanks to fog, adverse winds that blocked the British fleet from cutting him off, and the caution of British Commander William Howe. Fresh off his near defeat, the future president realized that his underdog army needed an intelligence operation to have any chance of successfully fighting one of the most extensive military powers in the world. After several failed attempts, most notably the fatal effort by American spy Nathan Hale, Washington and his director of military intelligence, a 24-year-old Major Benjamin Talmadge, were finally victorious in the fall of 1778 with the formation of the Covert Spy Ring. What was the Covert Spy Ring? It was the most successful and enduring espionage network of the war. How did it work? Well, Talmadge recruited farmer Abraham Woodhull, his neighbor in Long Island, hamlet of Setauket, as the chief spy tasked with gathering intelligence in Manhattan. This worked out pretty well because Woodhull often traveled to the city to sell produce. Meanwhile, Setauket's whaleboat captain, Caleb Brewster, carried messages across Long Island Sound between Setauket and Connecticut. From there, Talmadge would convey them to Washington's headquarters north of the city of New Jersey. Later, when Woodhull became fearful of capture due to his frequent trips to town, he asked Townsend, who was a purchasing agent for a family mercantile business, to take over spying in Manhattan for him. In the centuries since the American Revolution, authors have identified more than a dozen ongoing members of the spy ring. No evidence, though, suggests that any of the individuals were women, though women would have certainly helped the spies out. But that didn't seem to stop historian Morton Pennypacker, who back in about the 1930s was the first person to identify the culprit spies and how they operated. In his books, he stated that one woman was a member. Some subsequent writers have followed his lead, repeated the story, and turned his unnamed female spy into Agent 355. It didn't seem to matter, though, that there was lack of evidence that she even existed. They used the term agent to describe intelligence gatherers, which wasn't even used during the era. Spy was the preferred name during the American Revolution. Getting back to that letter, there was only one of the 193 surviving letters that the ring members wrote that referenced any woman. Remember, that was that single coded letter from the chief spy Woodhull to Washington. As we said, it was dated back in August 15, 1779. And it had that one sentence: I intend to visit 727 before long and think by the assistance of 355 of my acquaintance shall be able to outwit them all. That one vague reference to a woman, by the way, if you're curious, 371 is the covert man, has spawned a whole subgenre of spy ring stories. So it started with Pennypacker, who proposed the existence of the female culprit spy, remember code name 355, who was Townsend's mistress. He suggested she'd been arrested, imprisoned on the infamous British prison ship Jersey, and given birth to Townsend's illegitimate son on board before dying. Other writers picked up the story and further embellished it. Chief among them is Fox News host Brian Kilmeade. In George Washington's Secret Six, The Spy Ring That Saved American Revolution, the 2013 bestseller he wrote with Don Yeager, he names 355 as one of 6 spy ring members. He doesn't explain his exclusion of widely accepted members like Brewster. Without documentation, Secret Six is not footnoted, but does include a list of selected sources. Kilmeade places 355 in the social circles of British spy master and legendary party thrower John Andre. Quote unquote, one agent remained unidentified, the book states. Quote unquote, through her name cannot be verified, and many details about her life are unclear. Her presence and courage undoubtedly made a difference, end quote. In Kilmeade's telling, 355 was, quote, a young woman living a fashionable life in New York, end of quote, who was somehow connected to Townsend. Another quote, through pro-American sentiment, she almost certainly would have been attached to a prominent loyalist family, end quote, he argues. He also states, it is therefore possible that 355 was part of the glittering, gangling cluster of coquettes who flocked around Andre as he moved around the city, end quote. Kilmeade said 355 even helped uncover Benedict Arnold's treasonous plot to switch sides and turn over West Point to the British. It's really unclear whether either of these writers attached their female spy to Townsend when the letter only mentions a lady in connection with Woodhull. In both writers' account, 355 is imprisoned in Jersey. While Pennypacker has her dying there, Kilmeade gives her a chance to survive the ordeal. Alexandra Rose, author of Washington Spies, the basis for the highly fictionalized AMC series Turn, which I watched, thought that was pretty good, is among several historians who believe that 355 referenced in the letter was Anna Strong, a neighbor of Woodhull and the wife of Sylvia Strong, the Patriot leader in Setauket. While she clearly would have been a supporter of and occasional participant in the espionage ring, Rose and like-minded historians do not turn Strong, the subject of another famous culprit myth, in which she signals Woodhull where to meet with Brewster's by arranging a petticoat and handkerchiefs on the clothesline into a spy. So it was a way for her to be able to go ahead and tell them what was going on. Many current historians lend little weight to the Agent 355 stories. Former CIA case officer Kenneth Dangler, in his 2017 book, Spies, Patriots, and Traitors, American Intelligence and Revolutionary War, called it, quote unquote, a romantic myth, end quote, discredited in the about 1990s. Beverly Tyler, historian at the Three Village Historical Society in Setauket, has studied the spy ring for decades. He emphasizes that the letters contain only one reference to a lady, quote, that is it. Everything else is made up. The whole business of Agent 355 and Robert Townsend, end quote. Tyler is fully convinced that Strong was 355. Quote, she had relatives who were loyalists in New York City. She portrayed herself as a loyalist, end quote. He explains, quote, during the war, as far as we can tell, she occasionally accompanied Woodhull into New York City. Anna Strong was 355. She was an agent 355. Members of the spy ring, quote, didn't refer to each other as agents, end quote. Historian adds, and the spies who did have code names were all numbered in the 700s. Quote, making up word agent and trying it to be number 355 has no validity whatsoever, end quote. Now, Claire Bellegal detailed her findings in the 2021 book she co-authored, Espionage and Enslavement in the Revolution, The True Story of Robert Townsend and Elizabeth, suggested that Liz, that's who is Elizabeth, may have been a mole in the British officer's household. Quote, being enslaved gave Liz a real way to outwit the British, end quote. Quote, she would move about unnoticed and pass intelligence to Townsend, end quote. As to why Liz would want to help someone from the family that had enslaved her, Bellegal says that she and Townsend had a connection. When Liz was sold to a brutal owner in Charleston, Townsend arranged to purchase her and return her to his family on Long Island, where she eventually was freed. Reflecting on why the legend of 355 resonates today, Bellegal says, quote, women took part in the struggle for freedom. In the past, too many times, authors created romantic legends to represent women contributions, end quote. You may want to look up the 501(c) nonprofit organization called Remember Liz, with the mission to educate the community about the extraordinary life and times of enslaved Black women from New York named Elizabeth or Liz. Bellegal is the co-founder. Historians may never be able to determine the name of the lady mentioned or how much assistance she provided, but the possibility that she existed is inspiring. However, Woman Agent 355 legend also represents a cautionary tale on how speculation and myth can distort history, which can only be nearly impossible to correct. We don't need to make up and embellish stories about women or anyone. Now let's research, find the stories that have yet to be told and are inspiring. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Soulful CXO. It's based primarily on Bill Byer's writings for the Smithsonian Magazine. He is a retired prize-winning staff writer for Newsday and the author of 5 books on Long Island history, including George Washington's Long Island Spy Ring. His work has been published in numerous other magazines, the New York Times, Chicago Sun-Times, Toronto Star, and other newspapers. You can follow him on Facebook and Twitter. Please like and subscribe to Soulful CXO and let me know your thoughts. See you next week.